They can't all be winners, folks, and that's okay. We're going to break down a disastrous end to the Golden State Warriors road trip. Did not have on my projections the Warriors losing a game by 52 points, yet here we are. There's still some positives to take away, though. Not all is lost. We'll break it all down next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. And you can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Threads at Dog Wild. The program is also available there at Locked On Warriors. You know, I started this game with by posting on Threads something that I do believe, I really believe this, that the duo of Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody will be better than the duo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in 2+ years, not now. But this game was just ugly. It wasn't ugly right away, though. Again, they lose this game by a final score of 140-88. The Golden State Warriors gave up in this game 82 first half points. It was over in the first quarter. The game was tied 21-21. The Warriors were in this thing. They were exchanging punches with the team that owns the best record in the NBA, the Boston Celtics. But then all of a sudden, with the game tied at 21, the Celtics went on a 23-2 run, and it was over. It was over very quickly after that. Whether or not it was a coincidence that the Leprechauns went on that run the moment Jonathan Kuminga was taken out in the first quarter, I don't know. But regardless, look, this road trip ended still with a 3-1 mark. Is it a bummer that the Warriors winning streak snapped at 8 games on the road? Yeah, but you could start a new one. Look at the big picture, folks. I mean, the standings, first of all, show the Golden State Warriors still in 9th. They're a game ahead of the Lakers in the loss column, but they're tied in terms of the win-loss percentages. But if I told you that at this stage of the season, the Golden State Warriors would have a 16-13 road record, considering last year they were 11-31 on the road, you'd take that as a positive, right? You take that and think, yeah, I'll happily take that. Is it bizarre that the Warriors actually have a better road record than a home record? Yeah, a little bit. The Warriors are 16-15 at home, 16-13 on the road. But again, there is a lot of positives to take away from a game that was ugly in almost every sense of the word. Bob Myers, who I credit first and foremost when we talk about the big picture of the Golden State Warriors dynasty. I absolutely love Joe Lacob. I love the fact that this team has ownership, which just wants greatness, wants success, has such an obsession when it comes to winning. That's what I want from my owners. So I love the fact that Joe Lacob and Peter Guber are the owners of this team. I give Bob Myers an insane amount of credit for the construction of this dynasty, leading to where we are right now. You look at players on this roster now who are leading largely to the Golden State Warriors' success, and he's responsible for most of it. And I bring up Bob Myers because he was commentating in the pre and post game show. He was one of the studio analysts alongside Stephen A. Smith and I forgot who the other person was, alongside the host Malika Andrews. Was it Michael Wilbon? I think that's who it was. Don't quote me on that. I'm already forgetting. But regardless, Bob Myers, I thought, was very astute at halftime when he noticed what I noticed as well. The players get interviewed going into the half, right? You see this on local broadcasts, depending on the regional sports network. For the Golden State Warriors, oftentimes going into the tunnel at the half, you'll see them grab a player, ask them 2-3 quick questions. So they did that today with Jaylen Brown. And Jaylen Brown, when I can't remember what the question was, but when Jaylen Brown in the middle of a game is bringing up the NBA Finals from nearly 2 years ago, which is what he did, it's on their minds. And when they see the Golden State Warriors coming into their building, a team that had beaten them 2 of 3 times at the Garden in that series, they're still bitter about it. And you can't blame them. The Warriors were down to that series 2-1. A lot of people, not myself included, if you're an everydayer, especially going back 2+ years, you knew that entire season, this program was boasting from the beginning of the season until the end of the Warriors were going to win that title. And even when they were down 2-1, I knew they were going to win that series. But regardless, a lot of people in Boston were cocky and feeling good when the Warriors were down 2-1 in that series. And of course, Stephen Curry did his thing and the Golden State Warriors did their thing and they win that series 4-2. The Celtics remember that. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, who turned 26 today, remember that. And Jaylen Brown evoked that memory during his halftime speech, bringing up the fact that they haven't forgotten what happened 2 years ago when the Golden State Warriors were in their building, beating the piss out of them and winning their 4th championship of this dynasty. So when it comes to motivation, a variable that plays such a huge part in NBA basketball, it plays such a huge part in all sports. It is a very real thing. You can't measure it, you can't touch it, but psychologically, if you've played the game, if you observe it, you can feel it yourself. It exists. It affects the outcomes of games. I'll go to my grave saying that in 2016 in the NBA Finals, the NBA suspending Draymond Green for Game 5, the biggest impact of that was shifting the momentum of that series. The Warriors were up 3-1. They were at home for Game 5. They were going to take care of business and win their 2nd championship that season. Taking Draymond Green out changed the entire momentum of that series and flipped it right to the Cavaliers. It's a very real part of life, of living. And when it comes to this game, the Golden State Warriors did not come into this with the motivation of feeling the sting of a loss like that from 2 years ago. The Celtics did. And they were fueled by it, and it drove them, and it was part of the momentum that they carried into this game and carried throughout this game. And it resulted in this massive blowout, 140-88. A lot of stats that were not stats that you want, being associated with the team, because for the Warriors, it was almost entirely negative. The Boston Celtics, one of the most storied franchises in NBA history, the 2nd most championships out of all the franchises. Would they have like 16? I think. Don't quote me on that one either. But the Golden State, the Boston Celtics, their 44-point lead at the half was the biggest first half lead in Boston Celtics history. Again, not something you want to be on the other side of, but it is what it is. That was the type of game that it was. That first half deficit was not only Steve Kerr's worst, 44 points at a half, it was also a franchise worst. The Golden State Warriors entering today had never faced a halftime deficit as large as 44 points. And they end up losing this game by 52. Again, the final score 140-88. So you look, it happens. But I'm looking at this optimistically in the sense that you finish this road trip, a road trip where a lot of people, I think, were writing this team off for that Toronto game, especially, maybe going a bit, over exaggerated in terms of the effects of travel, given how late they got in and the potential lack of sleep. But they overcame that Raptors game and the travel nuisance. They had an 8-game winning streak on the road entering tonight in Boston, and you can't win them all. All right. They can't all be winners. And tonight was not one. Now, and I'll say this as a final note in terms of positives. I will take a blowout loss like this, where you pretty much know from the 2nd quarter on that it's over. I will take a game like this over a game where you're losing at the very end, whether it's like a buzzer beater, just what I'll take my team getting blown out over losing a game where, you're within that clutch stat, right? Within 5 points in the last 5 minutes. I'll take a blowout all day, every day. It hurts infinitely less. It doesn't feel good no matter what. But again, I will still always take a blowout over one of those excruciating last second affairs where your team's on the wrong end of it. And, so it could have been worse, is what I'm trying to say. And again, 3-1 for the road trip. Awesome. I'll take it. I'm happy in that regard. I'm not happy with the way this game ended, but what are you going to do? The Celtics wanted it more than the Warriors. There were a few things I'm going to point out when we come back that I thought the team could have done a little differently. Because again, the game was tied 21-21. The Warriors were in this game for a little while. And we'll break down some of what went wrong early in this game, which allowed the Celtics to just take it away. But let's give some love to our sponsors for this afternoon. Happy Sunday, by the way, everyone. Hope you're having a nice Sunday afternoon, with the exception of this disastrous Golden State Warriors loss. But why don't we get to the folks who are paying our bills? And first up on the agenda is the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and that is FanDuel. It's NBA season right now, and if FanDuel is legal in your state, I hope you're getting your buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. All you got to do is just win a $5 bet. That's ridiculous. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props. The Golden State Warriors entered this game 10-point underdogs. That line jumped from 10-8 when the news became official that Stephen Curry was going to play. He was listed as questionable on the injury report with knee soreness. I saw someone report that it was maybe bursitis, but he played. And regardless, I don't care what the tease was. I don't care what the parlay was. The Warriors came into this game as 10-point underdogs, 8 adjusted when Stephen Curry was announced he was going to play, and they lost by 52. So I don't think any bet would have saved you in today's game if you had bet on the Warriors. But regardless, they're at home. The road trip is over, and you can bet on Wednesday's Warriors-Bucks game, which I think is going to have a drastically different outcome than what we saw today. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, the Locked On Podcast Network has its own 24/7 sports channel on YouTube, which is now available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And folks, I'm available on social media. I engage with you. I'm posting a lot of what I hope is interesting content. Just follow me on Threads at Dog Wild. What's going on in the chat real quick? Let's see how everyone's doing here. Retzel writing that the Warriors needed to be humble. They didn't come in scared. They're never going to come in scared. Gregory Wilson hitting the panic button, saying rebuild time. The Empire is on fire. Folks, it was just one game. It was not that big of a deal. I really don't think this one game is gonna be something the team will remember in a day. I don't think they're gonna think about it on their flight home. They are over it. So it's okay. I'm certainly not hitting a panic button from that one game. And don't forget, folks, they beat the same Celtics team at home earlier this season. So it's not like they have it in their heads that, oh no, we can't beat the Celtics now. I'm not overly concerned. Here's what I saw, though, real fast in this game, and which to me quickly steered from, again, a 21-21 game to the Celtics going on a 23-2 run. They dropped 82 on the Warriors at the half. For starters, look, we've talked a lot about Steve Kerr's substitution patterns, and for some reason, uh, Kerr's substitution pattern when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga is to pull him halfway through the first quarter, and he follows the same pattern in the second half, and then brings him back in 3-4 minutes later. And I don't know if that's to give him just a quick breather, but I don't get it, and I don't really like it. I mean, Jonathan Kuminga is only 21 years old. He's not a kid who needs breathers. I don't really see him out there exhausted all that much. And what I don't like is every time you take Kuminga out, and Kuminga is one of the team leaders in net rating, meaning this team is winning when he's on the court. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the moment he got pulled, the Celtics started that huge run. By the time Kuminga came back in the game, I think they were down 12 or 14 at that point. I'm not a fan of that. Let him play a longer stretch. I don't know if this whole breaking his minutes up into these shorter spurts is a good thing. And again, Kerr does this a lot. He scripts his minutes for his players. It's not just Kuminga that we see this with. We've seen this. I think just last game, Stephen Curry was on a heater, but because of these same scripted minutes, where he oftentimes takes spontaneity out of the rotations, he takes real time adjustments out of the equation. You see players that are rolling just suddenly yanked. And I'm personally not a huge fan of that. Kerr's been doing this for most of his tenure as the head coach. But when it comes to Kuminga, I don't see how it helps to pull him as fast as he does in those first and third quarters. Let him stick it out. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion on the matter. I just think he's too important to be pulling him out so soon. And again, it was literally 21-21 when Kuminga was pulled out. Celtics won a 23-2 run after that. I saw Stephen Curry in this game. This was one of Steph's worst games of his entire career. Steve Kerr alluded to him being potentially exhausted a week ago. And Stephen Curry immediately disputed that. We all know that Stephen Curry is quite possibly has the highest level of endurance in all of the NBA. He runs miles upon miles each game, most of that activity coming off the ball, right? I mean, it's notorious. His reputation of exhausting players trying to chase him down. So who knows if the shooting struggles tonight had anything to do with fatigue. Again, Steph disputes it. He's always said that, it's just ebbs and flows. Like when he struggles, it's just, it's the same type of thing that any player goes through, where sometimes your percentages go down. But early in this game, I saw him forcing a lot of shots. And that is something we're not accustomed to seeing from Steph. He rarely does that. He's very in tune with the flow of the game. But for some reason, he was just trying to force the ball in, especially with threes. And that's not how he normally plays. So that was a little out of character for Stephen Curry tonight. And the stat sheet reflects that. He had 4 points. On the next show, I'll report, because I came on so soon after post game. I didn't have a chance to do extensive research, but I am curious where that ranks among his all-time career lows. 4 points is meager for most players, let alone one of the greatest scorers this game has ever seen in Stephen Curry. Finished this game with a disappointing 2 of 13 from the field as a whole. But the number that really pops out is for the greatest shooter ever. He was just 0 of 9 from deep. That's bad. And again, I was seeing him force a lot of shots instead of making the extra pass, instead of maybe dribbling, attacking the interior for an easier bucket. 9 missed threes, 0 made threes. Not good, but again, he's Stephen Curry. He's allowed to have bad games here and there. Finished the game with a minus 29 in terms of net rating, had 3 assists and a rebound. Draymond Green, I thought defensively, and yeah, Alex, you're absolutely right. He did have knee soreness, but if he's going to play, he should be fine in the process. And again, he's had knee soreness before. I've never seen a shooting percentage that low. Now, another thing that I saw, which was really weird to me, was Draymond Green, for some reason, and I heard Steve Kerr allude to this in his post-game presser. If I can find the sound during the broadcast, I'll play it. But Draymond Green, for some reason, was daring Jaylen Brown to shoot threes all game. It was kind of weird. I can understand that approach with certain players. I don't know if I subscribe to that with Jaylen Green. He came into this game shooting 38%. from Beyond the Arc entering tonight. But a stat that I heard, which made that strategy all the more bizarre, is that the previous 5 games entering today, Jaylen Brown was 15 of 33 from Beyond the Arc. So his stroke was fine. He's been shooting it lights out. He damn near 50% from Beyond the Arc over 5 games. That's a good hot shooting stretch. And I heard Kerr allude to the fact that they didn't want Draymond selling out by leaving the interior to defend Jaylen, because they were afraid that if Jaylen abandoned the 3, he could attack. I guess Draymond's strategy was shoot your 3. I'm going to stay back and prevent the easier buckets. But it was a strategy that clearly failed, because Jaylen Brown was just eating him up from outside. In that first quarter alone, for example, Jaylen Brown was 5 of 9 from Beyond the Arc. Jaylen Brown had 19 first quarter points. He was leading this charge early on in terms of the Celtics just pulling away really in the first quarter. Again, a 44-22 was the first quarter score. So that strategy just clearly didn't work. Yeah, and Richard Sarpong writing, that's the exact reason for the heater. Yeah, it could have been. It could have been like of all the players to just leave wide open for 3-point shots. I just don't know if Jaylen Brown is the right guy. Anyway, so yeah, and Courtney Fox writing, hey Courtney, giving up 3 points and close them off from the 2 makes sense. It didn't make sense, but so who knows? Maybe the team was tired and Draymond was just like, you know what, if you're gonna hit your 3s today, so be it. But it just wasn't a smart strategy. Did not work. And the Celtics really pulled away. By the way, I know I've mentioned this already twice. I apologize, but really fastly, I have this on my notes here, that when the score was tied at 21 in the first and Kerr pulled Kuminga out, the Celtics immediately went on a 14-0 run right after that. I think that's what the run was before Kuminga came back. So I just don't like the whole take Kuminga out at the midway point of the first quarter mark. He's too valuable. You're opening yourself up for runs like that when you're pulling one of your best players on your team out of the game as early as you are. And yeah, so that's what I saw in the first quarter. But again, I'm not sweating this. All right, folks, like this is 1 game out of 82. In my opinion, blowouts are a million times easier to stomach than losing a really close game at the end, just because as a fan, you're emotionally invested until the very end. As a player, you have all this hope that you're still going to win. You're expending all that extra energy in the second half. A blowout game like this, I mean, the entire Warriors bench was just chilling. I mean, for over half this game, hardly any energy expended. As a fan, you knew this game was over, but 10 minutes in. So I will take a game like this over a tight loss all day, every day. And it's 1 game. If you're going to complain about a 3-1 road trip, your expectations might be a little too high. I thought this team did fine all in all. Ugly game today, but nothing to panic over. We'll have some final notes in just a minute after I give some love to a few other sponsors, or just a sponsor. I apologize for that. Ooh, and this one is a good one to talk about, because actually it's someone reaching out to me on social media to discuss this sponsor. And I'm talking about PrizePicks. So I've said this before. If you ever DM me, where's that DM overlay? There it is. If you ever DM me and if you want to pick my brain about PrizePicks, my services are open and available for you. And with PrizePicks especially, I love this game. I love this app. It's daily fantasy made easy. And the entire premise, in case you're unfamiliar, in case you're new to the program, is it's all about picking individual players and whether they're going to, let's say, score more or less than a certain amount of points. Stephen Curry, the number for him tonight, I believe, was 29, and he had to decide whether he's going to score more or less than that amount. Jonathan Kuminga was 16.5, and he had to decide he's going to score more or less than that amount. And that's the premise of PrizePicks. You could also, bet on a number of rebounds, number of assists. It goes across different sports. Minimum of 2 players, maximum of 6 players. PrizePicks has a promo right now called Demon Time, where you can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Demons and Goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play at PrizePicks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. And again, I love the game. For the most part, I win. I've never had to put money in. So if you ever want to pick my brain, just DM me. My Instagram handle is the same as my Threads handle, at Dog Wild. And I'll be honest with you. Like today, I told the person who DM me, like, hey, what are your picks? I told them I didn't feel good about today. Like I was like, here's what I'm betting with. I'm putting a very small amount because I'm not feeling great about this game. And I did not win. Stephen Curry did not come anywhere close to that number. I bet the more than for Steph, and that was a clear miss. But look, if you're a sports junkie, a basketball junkie like me, play PrizePicks, win some money, have fun. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnba and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. One more time, prizepicks.com/lockedonnba. Use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, I don't know when our next show is going to be exactly, but here's what you can count on. Post-game shows. We're always coming to you live after every game. And the Warriors are at the stretch of the schedule now where they finished this 4-game road trip, 3-1. That's awesome. And they're now going to start a 3-game homestand with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Chicago Bulls. That's going to be Wednesday and Thursday back-to-back. And then they play the Spurs on Saturday. I heard some broadcasters complaining about back-to-backs on the schedule and how, the players don't like it. No one likes back-to-backs. But here's one thing I wish the NBA would implement that I think would reduce the negative effects of back-to-backs. And they started doing this during the pandemic, like when they had all the bubble games. And I think the first year after, the pandemic suspensions, we saw this in the schedule. Have your back-to-backs with the two same teams. Meaning, if you're going to have like the Warriors and Bucks, for example, if you're going to have a back-to-back, have those two teams play each other back-to-back. That way there is no advantage or disadvantage. Because to me, that's the biggest issue. I don't think players, these are like physical specimens. They are the elite of the elite on this planet in terms of athletes. They can handle playing 2 games in a row. All right. That's not, human beings have been doing this for decades when it comes to basketball. And it's not like the body cannot handle playing the game of this beautiful sport for 2 straight days. But there is a clear advantage and a disadvantage when one team is playing the second half of a back-to-back, like the Warriors are going to be on Thursday against the Bulls. And I don't know if the Bulls are playing the second half of a back-to-back, but if they're not, and that happens pretty regularly, that's a clear disadvantage for the Warriors and a clear advantage for the Bulls. So that's the one thing I would ask. And I think the NBA, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to do this because they've done it before. I think that would eliminate the competitive disadvantage for the team that is on the second half of a back-to-back. A lot of the gripes would go away. You'd level the playing field. That's my one thing. So with the back-to-backs that I think would make a considerable improvement for the game and for the product. And again, I bring that up because the Warriors are playing the Bucks and the Bulls Wednesday and Thursday. By the way, I don't know if you heard Richard Jefferson on the broadcast. He was mentioning, Abraham De Leon, Giannis versus Kuminga Wednesday. I'm really excited for that. They play different positions, but regardless, those are 2 specimens. Speaking of athletes who are going to be going at it, Courtney saying, do not have them go through customs on a back-to-back. Wholeheartedly agree with you. Although if you watch the Rick Barry episode, not everyone thinks that that's as big of a deal as Bob Fitzgerald and some of the individuals with the team were making it out to be. But regardless, So a couple things I want to point out before we wrap the show up today. Again, the Warriors get blown out. They get their butts kicked, lose this game by 52 points. What are you going to do? It's all right. I'm seeing this stat come in right now. The Warriors' 52-point blowout loss was the 4th worst in franchise history. This includes both the regular season and the playoffs. The worst loss they've ever suffered was in the 71-72 season when they lost to the Lakers 162-99. The second worst, they lost by 56 a year later to that same Lakers team, 126-70. just a few years ago in the 2020-2021 season. That was the year that the Warriors won just 15 games. So it does make sense. The Warriors lost to the reigning world champion Toronto Raptors, who no longer had Kawhi Leonard, but were still a good team. They lost to the Raptors that year 130-77. So that was a 53-point loss. And then this one today, 140-88, goes down as the fourth worst loss in franchise history. But again, they still finished the road trip 3-1. The Warriors are still ninth in the standings currently. They trail the Dallas Mavericks by just a game and a half, and they're just one game behind the Mavericks in the loss column. They're 2.5 games behind the Sacramento Kings for the 7th seed. The Kings are 3 games ahead of the Warriors in terms of the loss column. The Kings are 34-25. The Golden State Warriors now 32-28, 22 games remaining on the season. And then if the Warriors are striving to just get out of the play-in altogether, you got to be finished with a 6 seed or better. The current 6 seed are the Phoenix Suns. The Suns are 35-25. The Warriors, they're just 3 games back. So again, I'm still feeling good about this. Even though Richard Jefferson was reporting that we were seeing the wave at the Garden. I haven't seen a wave at a sporting event in a long time. Whoa, look at the chat's got a little aggression here. Beret writing, "I told you, idiots." Let's hold off on the name calling. I'm gonna give you a timeout here. But the Warriors are done just from one get. Look, I know people have very short memories. And we live in a culture of recency bias, but let's not forget the fact that they came into this game with an 8-game road trip. That was very extreme. Jay Boogie, I do like a point that you make. The Wiggins thing of it, I think that they're fine without him. Just my opinion. You could agree to disagree on that. But I do think the Warriors are missing Brandon Podziemski. He's missed 2 games now. And his impact and lack thereof is being felt. Even when he's not putting up points, his rebounding, his toughness, he's got a level of nuisance to him. Like Brandon, like if you're another team or a fan of another team, you could tell they're getting annoyed at the fact that Brandon Podziemski is one of those irritants, right? And he's our irritant. He's leading the NBA in charges. He's tough. Like he's 6'4", 6'5". I always, hear different height measurements for him. I'm going to guess 6'4". That's what I saw on NBA.com. And they take the official measurement with shoes off. So maybe 6'5" with shoes. But he's a tough dude. Like you're not pushing him around when he's inside. And that's a variable that goes a long way in basketball. There's that level of toughness where you have this low center of gravity and you're immovable. That helps things. That's a good thing. So I do think Brandon Podziemski is incredibly missed. And I hope he comes back soon. He's been battling some knee soreness. He strained the knee, I think, in that Knicks game, if I remember correctly, and then he ended up missing the Raptors game, and then today. And then the Celtics, and Steve Kerr mentioned this in the postgame presser, had 42 transition points in this game. I mean, they were just running it up and down. They had a whole other gear today that the Warriors did not once touch. Want to give some shout out to Lester Quinones, by the way. He led the team in negative net rating. He was a -37 today, but he still finished the game with 17 points. He was one of only 3 players on the Warriors who hit double digits, 17 points on 7 of 16 shooting. He also added 5 rebounds. Jerome Robinson, who doesn't get a lot of minutes, scored 10 points in garbage time. So Jerome, congrats. You got a mention on the program. And then Moses Moody, who played 19 minutes in this game, was 5 of 9 from the field. This 3-point shot, though, was not falling. He was 1 for 4, finished the game with 11 points. The Warriors shot just 17% from beyond the arc in this game. And Mega Driver, who writes, we're not contenders. This good stretch is a mirage. You can say that for almost every team in the NBA. Half the battle is beating the teams you're supposed to beat. And the Warriors are doing that. Again, they're 16-13 on the road. Don't forget what happened last year when they were 11-30. I said 11-31 earlier in the broadcast. So look, I'm still feeling good. They got 2 days off. They play the Bucks on Wednesday. We'll be back at this way before then. This was a brutal loss, folks, but it's not the end of the world. 3-1 road trip's great stuff. The Warriors are fine. Let's not hit panic buttons. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.